Hey guys, Arcade Adam, back with another video, and I've got a monster for you today. If you like to just sit back and relax and watch people build stuff, this one's for you. So in this one, we're going to take apart my control panel. I'm taking some final footage of it for me, so in case I really screw this up, I can remember what it looked like. But we're going to take this thing apart. Right now, inside, this was a Rec Room Masters control panel. I had since upgraded it with Ultimarc LED micro-leaf buttons and Rgb joysticks, and then I also bypassed the I-PAC Mini control board, which is a keyboard emulator, and I put in two Brooks fight boards, and those are Xbox controller emulators on a basic level. I'll link them below. They're actually really nice. They're expensive, but what they can do is they can emulate Xbox 360, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and also the PS3 and PS4 controllers. So they are mode switchable between all of those. So X input, D input, and then whatever the custom Nintendo controller mechanism uses. I haven't read up on that. But anyway, we're going to take this control panel apart, and I'm going to show you that process. I'm going to attempt to rewire it, get it back on the IPAC Mini. And a lot of you are probably like, well, if you've already got, the Xbox controllers working, why would you go back to the IPAC Mini? And honestly, there's a really cool feature that I think not a lot of people have picked up on. Andy at Ultimarc has actually created a firmware for the IPAC series, so IPAC Mini, IPAC 2, IPAC 4, that allows you to switch controller mechanisms on the fly. So with a simple hotkey, you can go from a keyboard emulator to D input or to X input. And I'll show you guys at the end of this video, hopefully, if I get through this wiring process, how that works. So inside of a game, you should be able to switch, and that way you never have to redo your controls. So if you've got a brand new game like Mortal Kombat 11, or the brand new Killer Instinct, or even the new Street Fighter 5, you can go to an X input, and it just thinks you have two Xbox controllers. And then when you jump back into MAME or some other older emulator, like a console emulator, you just switch back over to keyboard emulation, and you're good to go. So you got the best of both worlds, and that's what I'm trying to do here today. So take apart my cab. I've got to unplug this thing. Like I said with the mods I did, I've got a lot of wires. Look at that mess that's coming out of this thing. So come join me for the ride. We're going to go back into the workshop, into my secret lair, take this thing apart, and rewire this thing. So buckle up. Here we go. It's a long one. Okay guys, just real quick, gotta jump in. It's future me. I decided to Tarantino this for you because holy cow, it works. I have got two gamepads instead of a keyboard emulator on the IPAC. So check this out. Showing up as two independent gamepads. Look at that, player 1, player 2. In control panel. So Windows thinks this is two X input or Xbox controllers. We're good to go. And I'm going to fast forward here in a second just to show you. I'll go into more detail later, I promise. But I just wanted to show you two players working in Mortal Kombat real quick. So here we go. I loaded up in keyboard only mode, like stock. This is what you get from an IPAC. And I can't do anything. There's just, you see the letters up by legal, link to mobile. So I'm holding down start and player 1 button 3 for 10 seconds, and I let go, and you got to give it a second and check out what happens next, guys. This is crazy. Two Xbox controllers show up in the list that previously weren't there before. So now it thinks I have two Xbox 360 controllers, so you can change the mappings for that. And man, I was a little excited. I had to mute this part, but anyway, now let's jump into some gameplay.
Smells rotting flesh.
Must be your victim's stinking guts.
It is better than your scent, Baraka.
Round 1, fight.
All right, here we go. Player 1, backwards, forwards, up, down. Now player 2, up, down, backwards, forwards. Independent gamepad controls from an I-PAC, guys. I know it may not sound like a lot, but this is a big deal. And you can go back and forth with a hotkey. Alright, now back to your regularly scheduled arcade control panel construction. Just wanted to show all this off and show that it was actually working. Alright, getting myself reacquainted here with this thing. Yeah, it's a mess. Anyway, it looks like what I did was I took the original I-PAC wiring and I just took it off the original buttons and bagged it up so it wouldn't ground anything out on me. You'll see those boards to the far left and then towards the upper right with those blue connectors. Those are the Brooks Fight boards. And that bag of wiring I'm holding is the unused connections that's attached to the I-PAC Mini right underneath it. And then that circuit board towards the bottom with all of that different colored wiring going towards my right elbow is the PAC-LED 64. So that's what does all the RGB lighting control for all the buttons and joysticks. So I'm just reacquainting myself with this wiring, kind of sizing up the mess that I got myself into here. But I really want to try this firmware out because I think it would be the best of both worlds where we can have keyboard emulation and gamepad emulation and switch back and forth. And also there is even a beta firmware that lets you do both at the same time. And pointing out my Octagonal Gates. So these I had custom 3D printed and they are 8-way gates that kind of simulate a 90s arcade that wasn't really a big thing in the 80s, but in the 90s fighters like Street Fighter, some of the cabinets came right from the factory with gates like this, so you get a very precise feel as you do, your half circles or your first full circles on your joystick. The other thing I want to point out is the wiring on the RGB controls for the RGB joysticks is really, really cool. And I will take a close-up look at that in a second for you. So what I really want to show you is the difference. So stock, these Sanwas that Andy sells, so that's basically a Sanwa that he modifies for the RGB joystick. They come with this clear restrictor, and it's slotted so you can rotate it from a 4-way to an 8-way. And that's what I've got on my 4-way joystick. I just locked it to a 4-way. So you can see the difference between an 8-way and a 4-way restrictor gate. I just like the feel. Again, it's personal preference. They work the same, but it's just something that I think feels better when you're trying to play these 90s fighters. So just continuing to familiarize myself with the mess that I've gotten myself into. So player 1, player 2, that right there is the USB interface board for the trackball, and that's the spinner. So actually I believe that's reversed. The trackball goes to the I-PAC, and then the spinner has its own USB interface board. So that's the separate USB cable. And then I've got the RGB stuff down at the PAC-LED 64 like I mentioned before. So when you do switch to an XINPUT, that's a limitation I should mention. When you switch, it turns your trackball off. But I can't think of a scenario where you would want to have XINPUT controls and your trackball. Maybe in some modern golf games, but I doubt you would ever need that. I'm sure most of them will support the keyboard emulation. So what we're going to do, we're going to take out these Brooks boards, take out this custom wiring I put in, and put back the I-PAC wiring. So wish me luck. Alright, let me show you what I'm attempting to do. So this is the Brooks Fight board down here. This is a board that people use in their fight sticks because it can emulate Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3 controls, and Switch. So you can actually mode between all that. D input, X input, you know, lots of variability and flexibility. They're fantastic, but you need two of them. So this is just player one. And over here we've got player two. And what I did was, knowing that I might do this someday, I kept all the I-PAC Mini wiring bagged up. I just pulled it off the existing switches, kind of. These aren't the original switches even in this extension controller. I took those out too. So I took out the original wiring and the original switches. But this is the original wiring, so at least I know where it goes back on the PAC Mini. And we can try to figure out how to put that back together. But then I noticed this little guy. Guessing he's a ground just because of the color. But why the hell did I do that? I'm gonna have fun figuring out what that's for. It looks like I did some sort of patch job into the grounds. Oh man, I don't remember, because these are the admin buttons and these are all self-lit. These were stock, but this butt connector thing, whatever, here I can pull it apart, that's me. That is definitely not stock. So I don't know what I was thinking. I must have taken that off of there and put this connector on, trying to tell myself, my future self, that this was something I needed to do. So I'll have to trace what that's about. But moving on, we've got the RGB LED controller for the trackball. These wires notoriously fall off. I think you even had to resolder them. The joints were kind of crap from Ultimarc. And then that was his zip tie, but I hot glued it to the actual trackball, because if this moves around, or if this moved around, it would just pull these joints right off. These were super weak. So if you guys do this yourselves, it's a super easy install. I believe there's just one screw. Oh yeah, there it is. So there's one stock screw that holds this whole board on, and it's nice and sturdy. But these wires were super loose, and even kind of looks like my ground could use a little touch up there. That's not a solid solder joint. And just, you know, casual playing would rip those things off. So secure it somehow, hot glue it, however you want, figure it out, make sure that doesn't come off. Moving on, these are the octagonal custom 3D printed gates I put on. So this is definitely gives these Ultimarc LED ball top sandwalk clones the 90s feel, because they've got all 8 directions and they kind of lock, you know, and stick in place, as opposed to, you know, let me grab another stock restrictor. There's my stock marquee art. So I have a few left over, but this is what was on there originally. So see how it's slotted, so it allows you to rotate. So you can have a 4-way configuration or an 8-way configuration, depending on how this rotates. Well, what I did is I just moved it, because I'm never planning on switching them. I went to an octagonal gate, and that's what does that. So what I did for my dedicated 4-way, that's just locked in 4-way mode. And that's how I do my old school 80s games. And most of the time I'm using these guys for my 90s fighters and such. So yeah, what else we got in here? Well, here's the USB interface board for the spinner. So it's just a simple HID USB interface board. And then the spinner's right over here. What else we got? There's the I-PAC board, if you can see it down there. It's really tiny compared to a regular I-PAC or an I-PAC 4. But they run basically the same firmware, or they have the same features, I should say. Not the same firmware, it's definitely different firmware. But they have the same features as a regular I-PAC. It's just very compact. And so it fits in that nice tiny space. And then the last thing is where all this ketchup and mustard cabling is coming from. If you can see down there, this is the PAC-LED 64. This is where all of my LED buttons are wired to, and this is what controls the colors. So it's just another single USB interface. And then it has, I believe, 90, no, it's a packlet 64 channels of RGB, or I should say outputs. It's not individual RGB controls. As you can see, it'll focus on the numbering. Let me see if I can get it to focus. See all those numbers? So you've got plus, 40, 41, 42. Those 4 pins make up one button. You need positive and then red, green, blue. So it's a lot of wiring, 4 wires per button just to get a light. And then you need 2 more to actuate it and register the button push. So each button has 6 wires, plus your joystick wiring, plus your RGB connection, which I think is kind of cool. Andy from Ultimarc, I think, came up with this design. So it's basically a standard headphone connector, male and female, and then that way they can spin. So when you're rotating them, it doesn't stress the cable too much. But yeah, that's tonight's mission. We're gonna remove these, try to wire back into this guy, and then I believe I already updated the firmware, so we just gotta make things work and try to get back up and running. And one of the last things I wanted to show you was all this wiring. So I went from a 2 USB cable control board to a 4 plus the where is it, one of the LED input boards. Oh, there it is. So there's a barrel connector, if you can kind of see down there on the pack lid. So that needs external power plus what the USB gives it. So it's literally five wires to get this control board plugged in, and going back to IPAC Mini will get me back down to 3. So that'll be nice. Get rid of those 2. But yeah, I'm gonna put you guys back up on tripod and see if I can get this done. Alright, thought I'd jump back in here and provide a little commentary as I'm rewatching this and editing this video, but as you guys might have noticed, I've got my player 1 joystick and my 4-way joystick electrically wired together, so that way when I configure games, I don't have to configure 2 sets of controls. If player 1 joystick's going to work, that means my 4-way joystick's going to work at the same time, so I can jump back and forth in MAME or any other game for that matter if I prefer the octagonal 8-way gates or the 4-way game. So that just keeps it more simple. Just thought I'd add that real quick. So another quick edit, just to explain what I'm doing here. As you notice, I'm taking some of the wires off the Brooks, and what that is the grounds. So what I did was I figured out where that random black wire was. I cut the existing grounds, and instead of rewiring all that and daisy chaining new ones, I just put them right into the Brooks. So that's why I had that cut wire in the beginning. And then over on the left hand side here with these admin buttons, I wired in start and select basically on the Xbox controller over to start and coin on my admin buttons. So that's why I'm kind of crossing over from player 1 to the left hand side on my admin buttons. And we're almost there. Got it. Free at last. And here's your Brooks board. So those screw terminals, the blue ones on the left hand side, so you've got your button labels, start, select, grounds, right, left, up, down, joystick, that sort of thing. Your white connectors were more for mode select and other joystick inputs. So it's a really cool board, and just your standard USB-A connector for interface. I highly recommend them. I didn't have any issues with them. I just really wanted to try this new firmware to get some more features. And like I said, this could be the best of both worlds if it works as well as I think it will. So now it's time to cut this bag open and start putting the I-PAC Mini wiring back on these buttons before we forget what it is. But before we do that, I'm going to need to go grab my iPad and get the wiring schematic, so bear with me for a second.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.
Alright, what you see I'm about to do here is repair that ground, and I take lessons from the great Ben Heck. Look him up on YouTube. He had a great tech show that recently stopped producing. But anyway, his whole thing was always build things to where you can unbuild them. So we're going to put in another connector. So this is an insulated connector, and instead of just soldering or repairing the wire back to where it was, let's build it so we can take it apart again if we need to. Because, you know, next week somebody else will come out with some other gizmo or wackadoodle that I want to put in this thing. So here come the wire strippers and the crimpers. Let's do this.
got a game. It's a red skin.
All right, down to our last couple wires. There it is. We finally got the second Brooks board out. If you guys are still watching, thanks for sticking with me. I know it was a long one. It's not for everybody, but I just wanted to show the process. Like, it's not difficult to do this stuff. It just takes some time and effort to look at the wiring diagram, and look at the colors and cross-reference the labels on the PCB and go back and forth. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's just something I like. It actually kind of relaxes me. I can unwind doing this stuff, but you know, it just may not be for everybody. If you guys got any questions about this, definitely put them in the comments below. I'll be down there answering anything you got. I was fortunate growing up. My dad was an electrician, so he taught me a lot of this stuff. So I've got like some of the computer background, some of the electrical background. Definitely not an expert in either one, but I'll do my best. If you got any questions below, leave them in the comment section. Alright, so I thought we may not have to do this, but I found another ground that it doesn't make sense to put in a third butt connector. I would have basically a triple junction, you know, where that yellow connector was where I was showing you earlier. So what I'm going to do is take this stray ground that I had disconnected and put it in the same connector. So we can still unplug it, we can take it apart, but I'm going to have two grounds going to a single input on the board. I know that's not proper. Probably some of you arcade purists that are like into the whole daisy chain thing are probably yelling at your screens right now, but electrically, to me, this was no problem. It goes to the same input. It's player 2 on the board. It's the same ground, so we shouldn't get any crosstalk or anything like that. As long as you trace your grounds and they're all going to the same side and same input panel and the same input on the board, to me, this is fine. So I'm going to solder this stray ground to the connector that I've got in my hand there. So I'll basically have two of these grounds going to the same spot, like I said. Also, probably not the best way to solder this. I'm just going to put it right on the top of the joint, because there's some bare wire left over from the crimp, and I think I can get some solder on both of these bare wires without twisting them together and see if I can get them to stick. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Just wanted to explain. And now back to your regularly scheduled control panel construction programming. Hey, it's me again. Thought I'd explain why I brought out the multimeter, but basically once I got that ground in there, I wanted to check continuity, just basically check the connection. That's one of the worst things to track down after you've got your control panel all put back together, is a ground that's like intermittent. So like your button works once but it doesn't work twice kind of thing. It'll drive you crazy. So to check continuity across the entire daisy chain, I'm going to put my multimeter in continuity mode where it beeps if basically the 2 points can touch. So that's why I'm kind of testing, kind of off screen, can't really see it, but I'm putting the two test points together and I'm getting a beep. So what I'm going to do is put it at my solder joint, and then I'm going to test the ground at anything that's kind of exposed all the way through the admin buttons, the player 2 buttons, and the player 2 joystick, just to make sure I'm getting continuity throughout all that stuff. That's just wanted to share that real quick. Alright guys, this is it. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm about to give you the Chuck Norris here for a second, and this one is done. Let's go test it and see what I broke, because there's no way I got this right first try. Alright, back at the scene of the crime. So this is what I showed you at the beginning of the video. This is my first time I plugged in the control panel, and I'm testing it, and I get these two beautiful gamepads. But like I said earlier, no trackball, no spinner. So when you're rocking XINPUT gamepads, you're not going to have any mouse support. So, you know, I can't think of a scenario where you would need that. But I just want to give you guys a heads up. So keep that in mind as you guys experiment with this and hopefully get it up and running. Because, like I said, I had to rewire my control panel because I was stupid and I got some Brooks boards. And then Andy came in with this new firmware and we don't even need them anymore. So anyway, you guys download the new firmware and you'll be good. And then you can switch back and forth. Which brings me to my next point. Switching back and forth. You hold down Start and you hold down Player 1, Button 1 to go to default keyboard emulation, like out of the box. So you can see I just did it. The gamepads disappeared. Now let's test the keyboard emulation of the control panel. It should be your standard layout, you know, Control Alt Z, space shift, up, down, left, right. And then I'm testing it in the control panel, but I have a tester. I'm sure there's probably better ones out there that you guys know of, but I just go to Google and I fire up a website called Keyboard Tester. So let's go grab that real quick. There we go. Keyboard Tester. Yep. Fire it up. All right. Moving the joystick and it's showing up as arrow keys. Press buttons. Showing up as Shift, Alt, Control, Spacebar, ZX, C, like it should. Now if I press Player 1, Start, and Player 1 button 3, that is X input mode. And I'll link in the description the instructions and the firmware and all this stuff so you guys can look this up because there's several modes. There's actually 5. You can have D input, that's button 2. You can have X input, that's button 3. Keyboard emulation, like I said, is button 1. And 4 and 5 are user set profiles, so you can customize what X input and what D input does on 4 and 5. I haven't even played with that yet because I just wired it up and now we're testing. So here I'm showing you. Now I'm going back to X input mode because Player 1 button 3. So hold for 10 seconds. For me on my system, the way I count, it's more like 8 seconds. But to each his own. And if you go too far, it looks like it doesn't catch it. So try to be precise with your 8, 9, 10 second count, whatever that that is. But so now we're testing again, and the keyboard tester doesn't come up with anything, but I got my gamepads back, so it's working. I can switch back and forth. Oh, this is just so awesome, guys. I'm so excited. Like this is like the holy grail. Like you never have to configure a game again. You just rock out what all the old school emulators are expecting in keyboard mode, and then when brand new game like Streets of Rage 4 comes out or Mortal Kombat 11 or whatever, you just switch it to X input and the game doesn't know any different. It just doesn't care. You got 2 players, you're good to go. One of you guys did message me earlier as I was talking about this before I made this video, and we have to confirm this. I'm pretty sure the IPAC 4, the 4-player IPAC, you still only get 2 X input or 1 and 2 player. I don't think you get all 4, but we got to confirm that. I haven't found any other documentation other than it mentions it in Andy's firmware that might be the case. So we got to figure that out and confirm it. But for right now, we got a pretty sweet setup. And look, yep, player 2 shows up as RDFG. Standard button layout again. I'm sure you guys are familiar with these button layouts. My trackball works, spinner works. I have hotkeys on my button so I can raise and lower the volume. That's just using the shift command in IPAC. I'll do another video on IPAC because now that we got this, you can use hotkeys. And so I'm sure some of you guys maybe already have hotkeys in your arcade to where you can bring up apps, do macros, bring up task manager, raise and lower the volume like I do, that kind of stuff. So let's shift gears here, fire up Steam. We'll go into Mortal Kombat 11. Now keep in mind, I'm still in keyboard emulation mode. So Mortal Kombat 11 is going to expect gamepads. I don't know if it's X input only. It might be both because it's a pretty new game. The games are getting better at working with multiple gamepad types, but I'm leaving it in keyboard mode to show you guys what it's like. And I also want to test, like, can we switch in the game? Like, do you have to switch before the game or can you switch in the game? Because that would be even better. Like, you don't have, if you forget or whatever, let's just load it up and see. So here comes Mortal Kombat 11. Come on. Start up, buddy. There we go. Okay, so I'm in keyboard mode. You can see by options and quit, it says M and escape. So it's found the keyboard. It knows that I have a keyboard plugged in. Go over here to controls, and I'm going left, right. The keyboard is the only thing listed. There's nothing in here. So, what happens when we switch? Start button. Player 1, button 3. 10 seconds-ish. Let it go. Give it a second. Come on, baby. Yes! 2 Xbox controllers. Just like you guys saw at the beginning of the video, this is just so sweet. We don't even have to do it before the game launches. Like, that is amazing. So, in the game, you can just switch back and forth. Like, I don't think you need to do that, but like I said, if you forget, you are good to go. So now, let's fire up a game and test this out. We'll just stick with default controls. I don't know what the layout is or anything, but let's just fire up a local 1 and 2 player versus on the old control panel. Oops. Nope, we don't need that. Alright. Fight. Where's the A button? Local. Yep. Okay, so we got player 1. Yep, we can do character select. There we go. Oh, that's right. You can choose your different skins and abilities and such. I should play this more often. I downloaded this game and played it for 5 minutes, and then I've left it alone. I really need to jump back in on Mortal Kombat 11. Alright, player 2, I think I need to find the A button. Oh, there's something. There. Random select. No, I don't want that. There we go, player 2. Haha, yes! So we got independent controls. Now I can select my character. Arnie. What's A? Oh, crap. Oh, well. I picked random select. Who cares? Let's just get in the game and see if this works. Player 1. Looks like I gotta hit something. There we go. Sure. All right, here we go.
This one smells rotting flesh.
Must be your victim's stinking guts.
It is better than your scent, Baraka.
Round 1. Fight.
All right, back to where we were. Backwards, forwards, up, down. Yes. Player 2. Yes. So now we've got full independent player 1, player 2 controls in a modern game, and the ability to switch back and forth. This is just fantastic, guys. I don't know how else to explain this. This is the holy grail. This is what we've been waiting for. We can play any game we want on our arcade control panels now without doing joy to key or Xbox 360 CE or whatever else. Auto hotkeys, scripts, doesn't matter. Just let it ride and switch it back and forth. I'm just gonna play the rest of this game, guys. Feel free to duck out if you want, but oh man, I just can't believe that it was this easy to get done. I'll make a follow-up video on flashing firmware on the I-PAC. Like I said, I'm going to do a video on the I-PAC software. It's not hard. I'll link the software below. I'll link the firmware below. I'll link the instructions below. Just follow them, guys. If you've ever flashed firmware on anything, like a motherboard or even upgraded your phone, it's no big deal. You just download the file, open it up in I-PAC, and hit upgrade firmware, and then give it a minute. It's not anything complicated. So, oh man, I'm just so sorry. I'm so excited. that opens up so many possibilities. You've got all these games expecting XINPUT that you no longer have to mess with. You got that really cool Pac-Man Museum game. You've got these fighters like Killer Instinct, Virtua Fighter 5, Dead or Alive 6, all the Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, all those brand new games that may or may not work with stuff out of the box. So this is just great. All right, I think I'm going to jump out of here. and go into MAME and see if we can switch back, like, you know, without having to jump out of big box or do something weird. Let's just keep testing this. So I'm still in gamepad mode. Let's go fire up big box and see if I can switch modes in MAME without it freaking out. That'll be awesome too. So let's fire up big box. Alright, let's get into our arcade classics. Oops. Looks like I gotta set up the keys. Let me just use the keyboard real quick. Big Box does not know about my new Xbox controllers. There we go. Let's get to Street Fighter maybe, because that's an easy one to see. Oh, whoops. Didn't mean to fire up SOS.
8-way joystick. Primary control.
Oh, even better. It's all in Russian.
Joystick.
Never heard of this one. I think we'll just get out of there. Okay, let's get out of that one. Give me some Street Fighter. It's just easier to troubleshoot on a game you know like the back of your hand. That's right, it's in my favorites. There we go, Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. Let's get in
Light
here.
punch. Middle punch. Heavy punch. Light kick.
Well, my
Middle kick. Heavy kick.
LED buttons are still
Eight-way
configured
joystick.
correctly, so that's nice.
Primary control. 8-way joystick.
So, coins and player 1 start didn't work, so now let's do hold down start and player 1 button 1 for 10 seconds. Let's see if that worked. Oh, sweet. Guys, this is just so awesome. It switched in MAME and it didn't even freak it out. This is fantastic. Now I just gotta remember to do this. Like, why doesn't my joysticks work? Well, switch inputs. Oh, this is fabulous. Let's see, do I have all my things wired correctly? Backwards? Oh, wait, that's reverse. Alright, let's change this up real quick. Yeah, that's right, I wired this wrong. So, off camera, I reversed them on you guys. So let's relearn left and right. Alright, should be good to go. There we go. How about player 2? Is this working? Easy, easy there, Blanca. We gotta get over on player 2 and check those controls. Oh yeah, we're set. Alright, player 2. Up, down. Alright, punch, kick. Yeah, work. Oh man, this is sweet. There we go. There's his electrify move. Alright, let's get out of here. Let's try another one. Another one of my favorite games. Sunset Riders. Let's do that one. I love this game. I actually played this one in the arcades growing up, so this one's got some fond memories for me.
Jump. 8-way joystick. Primary control. 8-way joystick.
Oh, man. LED Blinky's still working great. That's awesome. Billy Bob, let's see what you can do. All right. There's no delay or anything in this. It's just like it never, you know, like normal, regular IPAC firmware is. It's fantastic. Oh, well, can't get down there for some reason. Let's try that again. There we go. Oh. Missed the pitchfork. Oh, I love this game. The stampedes are even better. Oh, gotta get out of the fire. Ah, I can't go down. I think I'm doing it in the wrong spot. Oh, come on! I saw it coming. Oh, no! Oh. Wait for the stampede. Well, guys, this is it. I know this was a long one. The joysticks are working great. The whole arcade panel is working great. I'll do some more testing offline and report back if I find any issues. I'll have to double check the trackball, the spinner, stuff like that, but I don't imagine I'll have any issues. You know, the lag, there's no lag, there's no input delay or anything like that. Like, it's just amazing. I am so happy I did this mod. Well, not really a mod anymore. I went back to stock. I'm back on my IPAC, which, you know, I probably shouldn't have left in the first place, but I really wanted to play those modern games that needed Xbox controller emulation. So those Brooks boards are awesome. You know, you can still use them. Like, MAME will accept them, so you're good to go there. But thanks, guys, for watching. I know you might have a ton of questions. I'll follow up with that IPAC video, I promise. Link in the description for all the things you need if you want to play ahead. But like and subscribe. Please share this video, guys. I'm really trying to grow this channel. And it really helps me out if you guys can share this around. I know you're in a bunch of Facebook groups, you own arcades, whatever, what have you. Just share this video as much as possible. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and catch you guys in the next one.